finish up.
All right, sounds good. Go for it.
So yeah, so what? So you won court today. You show up and you're saying they got to stay. You beat. They didn't pay rent, and what happened?
So but essentially, what they did was sign a stipulation, which cuts down. Now it's no longer up to the judge that if they're going to get out or when they're going to get out. It's a matter of just enforcing it because they signed an agreement that was signed by the judge. And in the city of New York, what they always happens too is that the judge actually sits there and somewhat works as an attorney for the tenant, where he actually goes through every part of that stipulation, reads it to them, explains it to them in layman's terms, and
Mm,
makes sure that they understand what they're signing, even if they're
mm,
represented. So they can't come back to the court and say, I didn't know or I didn't understand,
mm.
especially if they're represented.
I see. I
So
see.
it cuts down a lot of time on the eviction process if you go in there with a mentality of, all right, I'm going to make a deal today.
I see what you're saying.
Do you follow? So having said that, I had the stipulation, and that's what cut down a lot of time. So they got the stay, and I took it up to the appellate court immediately. Cost me about another $1,200, but
Good
to take it
Lord.
out of the lower court's hands. And my argument is,
Unreal.
they have no proof that they've actually been looking. They have basically, I just you dispute all their arguments, but with actual proof.
Hmm.
And now what happens is they only have 3 days, or whenever the marshal has time to come. The marshal never comes in 3 days. This particular marshal came in like 4 days, so I got lucky.
Evicting people in New York. I love it.
Oh, it's insanity, man.
I love it.
It's
Wow.
it's insanity. But it gave me the training that I needed for when
Mm,
I do things out of state. So one of the things I do wherever I'm looking at out of state, doesn't matter even if it's in a different county and within New York State.
hmm.
One of the things I do is I familiarize myself with, not familiarize myself, I study the living hell out of the tenant landlord of laws for that particular township and that county.
Nice. Nice.
Uh, and then that's one of the determining factors in whether I proceed with the deal,
Oh, okay. Okay.
if that helps you.
Wow, man. That's got to be challenging dealing with different states, and you got to worry about different, I guess, hats you got to wear. Okay, where am I at? What county I'm in today?
Yeah, it's funny.
I
It
mean,
is. Yeah, it is.
I can
It,
imagine. I mean,
it is. It is like so in New York, you don't have they have the 5 day notice, but the 5 day notice is actually irrelevant. It's
why
really the 30 day notice that matters.
30-day notice?
Right. And then but in Central Florida, it's a 5 day notice.
Hmm.
But if you're an out of state investor and you're receiving your rent payments in a different state, the 5 day notice is now up to 8 day notice.
That's in Florida?
Yes, in Central Florida. It changes to depending on what part of the state you're in.
Wow. Holy
So, which
cow.
really doesn't matter either, because once you post it, you take a picture of it, then I have them email it to me, so I have documented proof that it was posted, and and then it's 8 days. The crazy part, though, that it's 8 business days, not that, so it doesn't include the weekends.
Yeah, that's down here too. They don't do that.
Right.
All right, let's get rocking and rolling. Round Up family, welcome, welcome, Round Up family. Greetings, class. I see we got is it Kakalakis? Is that his last name? Kakalakis? He's joining
Okay,
us
I
today.
can't see who's on, but yeah, we met. You and I both met him at the Vault Conference.
Yeah, I really like this guy.
Oh, awesome guy. He has a really great concept. His thing is he's got a law practice that specializes in helping small businesses. Highly recommend if you give him a call if you're interested in starting your own small business, or even if you have an existing small business. He's got a lot of ideas to help you with.
Yeah, matter of fact, I'm gonna definitely have him on my broadcast, and he helped me. We sat down for like 30 minutes, and he actually helped me to kind of structure what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Daniel, is it Borrero?
you got it.
Daniel,
Very good.
welcome, Roundup family. This is Chris Haskins. If you're just joining us, I am a real estate entrepreneur, and my mission statement, my ministry is to raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. On Monday, my Monday Masters, I'd like to bring you people that change the trajectory of my life, my outlook, my philosophies, the way I look at business, and meet winners. Today we're hanging out with Daniel Borrero. Greetings, my friend.
Greetings to you, Chris.
Yeah, good to see you. Pleasure hanging out with you. Daniel, just to give you a little background, been in the business since the 1990s. He's based in Brooklyn, New York, but he buys houses in 3 different states. So you're going to be learning a lot today, as I was learning when I sat down with him a month ago. The man self-manages his own real estate. He's got over 150 doors, and today we're going to be talking about so much stuff from flipping land. And I don't know, Daniel, if we're going to be able to get all this stuff crammed into one day. Would you come back?
I doubt it, but we'll try.
So much.
We have to just touch base on, a little bit on everything.
I see real quick. I gotta ask, those certificates on the back of your wall. They look. Tell me those. What are they?
That makes me feel wealthy. The one in the middle is mine, actually, from when I graduated in 1985, and the one above and the one below are my 2 eldest daughters. They both graduated without any student debt, which makes me feel well. So it kind of reminds me why I do what I do. One of the reasons why I do what I do. I got 2 more in college, and I would say within the next 3 years, there'll be 2 more up on that wall.
Wow, they appear to be kind of heavy, my friend. I'm imagining what value that brings. What is the value of those pieces of paper?
Chris, if I stop to think about it, I think you asked me this question the other day. I think it was like 1.4. When you add it all up, that's gross. That's what you got to gross to, to be able to have the net to pay it. But I've been very fortunate with this business. It's afforded my family and I a decent life.
Nice, nice, cool. Okay, well, my brother's here. Daniel, real fast, give me a snapshot of just your history, where you come from, and what brought you into real estate real fast, my friend.
Since I was a kid, I always wanted to be in real. I shouldn't say that. I wanted to be self-employed. I just didn't know what I was going to be self-employed with.
Okay.
And then when I graduated from school, I actually worked for the government for a brief period of time, enough money just to save to start my own business. And when I left that job, everyone thought I was a nut. I left to open up a video store. Ended up, I was in that location for almost 25 years because then it evolved from videos to beepers, and then evolved to cell phones, and on and on and on. And while we were there, we started picking up properties in the neighborhood, everything that I could walk to. That was one of the criteria, because we were putting in serious hours. And we then had laundromats, we had ATM machines. I mean, we were just going all the way down the line. And then back around 2003, 2005, actually, we said, let's just concentrate on the land business. And we made a ton of money. Then, of course, the recession came, and where people thought the recession was bad for the people in the business, we looked at it as an opportunity and took advantage of the situation.
Nice, nice.
So pretty much that's it.
Okay, cool. So tell me, you are kind of known, as we talk, known for multifamily, Daniel. Why do you prefer multifamily over single family? Give me a little bit of that story.
So in all honesty, we're in Brooklyn, New York, right? That's where we started buying. And that's what you have in New York City is multiple family units. Single family units, in my opinion, although there'll be some that'll disagree with me, and that's fine. In the Northeast, I don't think they're extremely profitable. It actually makes no sense because there's a certain amount of work that goes into whether you have a 1 family, a 4 family, a 5 family.
One roof.
Right. So having said that, we have purchased 1 family properties, but we've always, those are flips. Those weren't that we were keeping them. When we do now, everything in New York, there are multiple family units, if not mixed use family units. Are you familiar with that terminology?
You kind of broke up one, Daniel. Repeat that, please.
We either buy multiple family units or mixed use family units. So
mixed use. Okay, tell me about that.
So mixed use essentially are where you have commercial on the ground floor and residential on top. Not as much now,
Okay.
but back in like the late 80s, early 90s, up until like the mid 90s, those type of units were extremely difficult to get financing on. The first multiple family mixed use property I bought was in Parksville, Brooklyn. 18%
Mhm.
interest. I'll never forget them. Greenpoint Savings Bank, and they robbed me
Oh
to
my
it.
Lord. Wow.
But if you wanted to get into that game, that's what it was. We were hoping, and it did work out, that the interest rates would come back down. I mean, eventually, I remember when I refinanced it at 10.5%, I thought I hit gold. Um,
Hmm.
and then when I refinanced it again at 7, forget about it. It
Wow.
was a
Wow.
windfall.
Oh, God.
But remember, so now the price was so depressed as a result of the interest rates and how difficult it was to get loans on those type of properties. So we took advantage of that. And then so now we got huge increase in value since, right?
Hmm.
And we've refinanced the property, I think, 3 times to take advantage of the lower interest rates. But yet we still paid it off in 15 years. So we never extended the term of the lease as far as the time was concerned. What we kept doing was refinancing the interest rate.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
Now, when you say are you saying they didn't change the terms of the mortgage or your lease? Are you doing a lease
The
on this
term,
thing?
the term in reference to time distance, right? So they
Time.
always
Okay.
give you that option where you could do 15 years, but if you got 5 years in and you're going to add 15 more years, well, what's the purpose of paying less interest? You're still paying it all to the bank, right?
Yeah.
But again, that's our philosophy. That works for us. I know a lot of guys that do it differently and they leverage the living hell out of every unit, which is perfectly fine too. If you've got something that's going to make you more money on, I guess.
So
Um,
you were worried more concerned with cash flow.
precisely, precisely.
You
There was a
just want.
plan, right? So the plan was these buildings were going to pay for, because my partners are my brothers and my father. So the plan was the buildings would be paying for our kids' colleges. And then, while my father was going to retire, which he did, that would be part of his retirement. And then when the kids were done, that was going to be our retirement money.
Gotcha. Nice.
And and it's actually worked out that way. We've been, we stuck to the plan through thick and thin, and it's worked out very well.
Nice. So I know we talked about very briefly. I want to get into your business stuff, a snapshot of your business, but I just want my viewers, my audience, to kind of know your story. We talked very briefly about the educational system and you coming up, because I don't want people to think that you got to be like this master to get started investing in real estate. Daniel, if you care to touch just a little bit of that stuff, because I was the same way. I knew nothing, obviously, when I started in this business.
I'm not sure where you want me to start with that question. Give me
Well,
some idea.
remember, as we were going over our notes, I remember yesterday you were talking about high school and you were thinking, how am I going to earn money and what what career you wanted to go into? Is that something that you feel comfortable going into? We
Yeah,
very
yeah,
briefly talked.
yeah. I don't have a problem with that. So you're looking at New York City public school educated, special educated uh,
Wow. Wow.
product. And not to say that they did a very good job. I was actually fortunate to have parents that insisted that the system do their job. And although they didn't do a very good job at it, they made sure that I had the basics, right?
Mhm.
Um, and one of the things that I realized was that as a result of me not having, you know, how do I say, there's this book, it's called The Millionaire Mind, and they touched on this in one of the chapters where,
Okay.
all the A students get patted on the back. You're going to be rich. You're going to be wealthy, right? And then they're telling like the group 3 students, which what I was in, right? It was group 1, 2, and 3, and I was always in group 3. You're going to end up working for these guys.
Wow.
Not in those words, but with their actions, right?
Hmm.
So, and I used to get angry, and I used to say to myself, these guys, they're not, group 1 isn't any smarter than I am. Why are they getting all this special treatment?
Hmm.
Um, but essentially, I was referred to by one of my college friends as the hardest working C student he ever knew.
Wow.
This country allows you to work harder and achieve. So so it doesn't matter what whether you come from a silver spoon family or not. It's up to you to make your own destination, your own future. And I chose to work harder than everyone else. So that's what it all comes down to. Was it easy? Absolutely not. Was it always starting like 6 steps behind the starting line? Absolutely, it was. Did I
Wow.
finish first all the time? No, but that didn't mean I didn't stop trying.
Wow. I think a lot of my audience and people that I bump into is kind of like they hit this roadblock, and especially with new investors, they think they're going to put out 10 offers, Daniel, and then get their first house, and it's over. You know, it's kind of like a. I can see
No.
your head shaking. Go.
Listen, Chris, there's a lot of way to put out offers, and everybody has their own creative ways. You know, we have our creative ways for people to accept our lower offers.
Mhm.
You know, there's some guys out there. One of the things they'll do is that a friend of mine, also another real estate investor, he goes to these guys. He knows they're having a hard time making their payments. Let's put this into a short sale, or I'll buy it out at what you owe on the mortgage. But what we'll do instead is I'll give you a 2-year lease at this, you know, whatever that ridiculous number is, and you got 2 years now to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the approaches I've done. It all depends on the individual, right? The other option is, yeah, you know, my number's less, but I'm not doing an inspection. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this. I could close this as soon as title's ready in 10 days.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to find where the value is for your seller. And you have to get on the street and actually do it yourself.
Value for the seller.
Yeah, I mean, look, realtors serve a purpose, and you have to you need them. There's no doubt about it, and they do an incredible job, and they work really hard at what they do.
Yeah.
But you also got to go out there and give them the assistance they need, whatever that may be. So if you're going to sit there and just give it to your realtor and pump and expect your realtor to just keep pumping out the contracts, you could do that, and then it becomes more of a number game than a success game.
Yeah, we kind of put them all together, you know. So by owners, realtors going out, foreclosures, short sales. I mean,
yeah, and then when you're in the street, you know, and then you're talking to this seller. Oh, but my friend down the road is having problems. Oh, let's go talk to your friend. Let's see how we can help your friend. You know, it's all about capitalizing on relationships. Something that Patrick Bet-David was talking about in the Vault Conference.
Relationships, so important, man. That's one of the main reasons I was there, to meet guys like you, to be frank.
Yes, so was I, and we've had a very successful relationship so far.
Yeah, man, really cool. I love the knowledge you're dropping. So tell me about this investing in 3 states. How does that look for you, my friend? But then I want to get to this land.
Investing in Florida happened to be accidental, and it turned into literally a livelihood.
Wow.
Yeah, we've probably moved in land, I can't even tell you, thousands of parcels.
Yeah, I see probably once a week, I see these new parcels coming in my Facebook feed.
Yeah, we've moved thousands. We've been
Tell me about these
selling.
parcels. Tell me about them.
Well, we've done across the board, right? So we've done, you know, the sexy stuff down in the southwest part and the south part of the state. And then we do
waterfront stuff, like
exactly, yeah, near Miami, you know, Fort Lauderdale and
wow,
Fort Myers, Naples, Captiva Island area, and then but there you're paying for sexiness, right? So the profit margins really aren't that high there. The sexier the property, it's the same thing with fixtures. The more needier the buyer, and it's just more time consuming. Yeah. And then we do with the mom and pop stuff, which is the northern part of the state where people could actually afford it. I got stuff as low as $1,500, but as high as $300,000.
Wow. So how did you get? What took you to Florida? I mean, you're in New York.
I'll tell you a quick story. So my sister ended up moving to Florida. Her job transferred her. She worked for Bristol. I'm sorry, no, Johnson & Johnson at the time. She then got married to a gentleman in Florida, and Alex was also he dabbled in real estate. Not dabbled, actually, did more than dabble. But and every time he would come home with my sister, you know, for the holidays, they kept talking to me about this place called Cape Coral, Florida.
Cape Coral, I remember that.
Which is Lee County. And I went out there with this one particular realtor who was extremely knowledgeable. I mean, to this day, I still do business with her. I refer business to her. And she got me in front of a lot of government officials, basically giving me the layout of what was coming. Then we went out to look at properties, and I remember driving for like 20 minutes without seeing one house.
Wow.
And we finally get to the land. I said, why would I buy this in the middle of nowhere?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, 7 years from now, this is going to be, you won't be able to buy this. So
Okay.
figured for $3,000, I
Yeah.
bought 6 lots, closing costs and all, we were into it for 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I figured,
That's
what am I
almost
going
like going
to
just like that's like your Vegas almost. You're just saying, let me.
pretty much. Plus, you got to remember something. So I was also going out there with the mentality from New York. You're not getting a lot in New York City for $3,000. Period.
Yeah, that's a pocket space.
Right. So I go back out with my brother, and I did a deal where we had some extra money, and I said, look, why don't we go out and buy 5 more lots
Okay.
in Cape Coral.
Before this is
This
before
was 6
anything
months
happened.
later, literally
Okay.
6 months later.
Okay.
And I go out there, and there's nothing less than $6,000. I said, so, but Lucy, how is this possible that it goes up double in 6 months? It makes no sense, no rhyme, no
Wow.
reason. There's no foundation. She says, but Danny, we met with the officials. You know what's coming, blah, 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 blah. And I said, you know what? So I called my brother, and I says, we're going to have to invest more money. He says, you know what? Take it out of such and such account. That was on safety net, but what do you just do it?
Yeah.
So I did it. And while I'm there, I ended up buying lots for my 2 daughters at the time. I only had 2 girls.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 7 years later, 5 years later, I was selling them at 55, 60, 70,000.
Oh my Lord.
That actually helped me dramatically pay for my kids' diplomas that you see on the back of the wall.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable, yeah. Daniel.
So when we realized, like, wait a minute, but the real way I got into it was I had a video store in one corner. My father had a deli across the street on the other that he retired from. He had it for 35 years. And there were guys dumping their restaurant food across the street on an empty lot. And I just couldn't take the smell coming across the street anymore, and the rats and the garbage. And so back then, it was before Giuliani's era. He hadn't cleaned up the city yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up buying the lot. This is no joke, for $35,000.
Okay.
So we fenced it. I rocked it. And I started parking cars there for $150.
A month or a day?
A month. I wish a day.
Okay.
Oh yeah, like I think at the time it fits like 15 cars for $35,000.
I mean, I paid $35 to $40 a night to park my car in the city. I mean, nowadays.
Well, yeah, this was back, early 90s.
Yeah.
So in any event, I ended up selling it for like $75,000 less than a year later.
Oh,
so I take that, I do a 1031, and I buy the one across the street. Same scenario. But those were 2 lots that I bought for 70.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up selling those on a 1031, literally less than a year later, for 340. Now I take the 340 and I buy the lot back across the street in the middle of the block and the one around the corner from a guy that I had been renting the lot for 5 years. I was paying $600 a month. I was parking 25 cars there for $150 a piece. So we turn around and then we sold those 2 lots. And I don't want to get into those numbers, but it was an outrageous amount of money in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, you know what? This isn't as difficult as I thought it was. Why don't we do this? My brother and I, and my father, and my other brother, we sat down and we talked about it. I said, why don't we do this as a mass production? And it got to the point where we were wholesaling in Florida about 1,500 lots a month.
Good gosh.
And we were probably retailing about another 300 to 500 a month.
And what years was this? What time frame was this one, Daniel?
Between 2003 and 2008.
So it sounds like to me you're an entrepreneur at heart because you're doing cars, store. You made that to park the cars. I mean,
well, we were doing everything. We had 2 laundromats. I had 6, 7 ATMs that we were filling twice a week at different locations.
Wow.
I had over 30,000 Beeper subscribers.
Good gracious, Daniel.
Yeah, it was insanity. It was 7 days a week, 24 days for many years, and we weren't spending a dime. We just kept all profits after. Every month you put a certain amount for Uncle Sam away in a separate account, so you're not sweating the taxes, every quarter, and then the rest we would just very little, We were making enormous amounts of money, but we were living on a very small portion of it and then reinvesting it all back into real estate for long term.
Gotcha. Long term.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, let's stay here for a minute. Could you just repeat that? Because I think people think, well, we're both knee deep in real estate. It's a way for me to my capital gets working, but I have other businesses that have the opportunity to fund it. For people that just have businesses and don't have the real estate to sink that financing in, just repeat, you were saying, you just said like the magic word, you're funding that, you're sinking your money into the real estate.
So essentially, you're living below your means.
There you
Essentially,
go.
what it comes down to. I mean, look, I drove my Chevy Cavalier for another 8 years after I graduated from college. Could I have afforded, a luxury car? Absolutely. I still can. And I still don't drive that car.
We talked about why is that?
Every time I think about spending that kind of money, I'm like, damn, I could go buy another condo. Right? It just bothers me.
I love your mindset. As we talked yesterday, these guys, I go to the courthouse with a cashier's check, whatever, but everybody's different, man. I think that's a good point to stay at, though. Has that helped you in your career? Living below your means? That's a rule of gold, though. Rule of the richest man in Babylon.
Yes, great book. Actually, I had all my kids read it. It's helped me, but you got to understand. So that I came from that, right? My father and my mother was like, if you make $1, you save 35 cents. And then you before you pay your taxes. So, I grew up in a household like that. So maybe that's why it's easier. And I was fortunate enough to marry a woman that shared my same goals.
Okay.
My same ideology. So it wasn't difficult to live like that. I mean, do we still live like that at this point? Probably not. I mean, although we don't spend it on cars, we spend it on other things, taking off family. I have adult kids, so, we all go on vacation together at least twice a year. My wife and I just came back from Europe for 2 weeks. We spend it more on memories than something that depreciates like a car.
Good
if
point.
that helps me. And that's not to say that I'm right or anyone else is wrong. It's just that's what works for us.
So tell me about these units, Daniel. You say yourself, my notes here, you're self-managing your units. How does that look?
We've been doing this so many years. So each one of us in the business, my brothers and I, we all have a certain, especially my brother David. He's more involved because my father's now retired. And my brother has his own career. My third brother. So he has his side of the business he has to maintain. I have mine, right?
Okay. So
his is more dealing with the contractors and with the stuff in Jersey or the stuff in Florida. I deal with the maintenance and tenancy and all. In New York, I deal with all that. But in Florida, he handles more of dealing with the contractors, the realtors. Other than when it comes to the rentals, that still goes through me.
Gotcha.
When you have the machine in place, it's actually not difficult at all. It's time consuming. But after the Vault Conference, I came back and I made a lot of changes to relieve myself of those $15 hour jobs.
Oh, man.
Concentrate more on the bigger picture. And that's one of the things I've been working on since we got back. And it's actually starting to happen. And I can tell you, I'm happier.
I'm loving the way you say that, man. I'm reading a book now, The One Big Thing, and he's talking about you move forward by subtracting things that you shouldn't be doing.
That's an excellent way of putting it. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're like and just real quick, I remember we talked about Section 8. You don't necessarily do, I didn't talk about this yesterday, but I wanted you to just share a quick reason why you don't.
I'm not going to tell you don't do it. I can't say, with the apartments that we have, I don't find myself needing to do it.
Okay.
We have a lot of applicants that come in, and it's sad to say, in a way, that they're just better qualified.
They got the income to cover it and the job history.
Just everything. They got the credit scores, the income, the good housing reports. Because
wow.
I put more emphasis on housing reports than I do credit check. So, I've had applications where someone comes in with a 780 credit, but they've had two housing evictions in two different states.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. Or I've put, another thing I look for in an application is if somebody's continuously moving.
Yep.
That's a problem, right? And I can't go by what they're telling me to be the truth, but they always blame the landlord. But in reference to getting evicted or being taken to housing court, because the report just tells us they were there. It doesn't tell me who won and why they were there. So my argument is, if it was that horrible place, why'd you have to get evicted from it?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you just leave? So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Let me close my windows. My dog, excuse me, Daniel, my dog's just go crazy, man. That's just part of life. Thought I was gonna get some breeze today, but that ain't happening. So we share with us, Daniel, regarding your financing back in when the old way you thought about financing and your financing today for people that are getting in and people that are already in.
Wow, that's a big question.
Well, I got my notes here for you.
You got me there. So financing back then, like I told you, my first mortgage on mixed-use property was 18.9%.
Is that a conventional loan with a bank, or that's a seller type of deal?
No, that was a Greenpoint Savings Bank. They were the only guys in town that were willing to lend on those type of properties in New York City, because that was right after the other recession when Reagan was in office. And the first thing that people did was walk away from those type of properties and say, let it become the bank's problem. So the bank was saying, you know what, if we're lending money on a house that you're living in, it'll be a lesser rate. But if we're going to lend money on a property that you're investing in, we have higher risk because this is what just happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Or at least they use that as an excuse, right? So having said that, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the resources that we have today. So financing was extremely limited for real estate investors, unlike it is today. However, today there's a lot of hard money lenders. But the problem with that I find with that, and not that I've experienced it, but when I'm mentoring somebody, is that it's all said and done. The hard money lender made most of the money on the deal. So the alternative to that is for you to live below your means while you're learning the business, save. So you don't have to go to the hard money lender. And if you do, you're not going to him you're going to him for a lesser amount.
Full amount. Right.
Unless it's a property that you're looking for long term, then it's a different argument. Then it's all based on, the appraised value, the income of the property, and your credit score. Then it's total.
Did you guys ever use any private money? I know we private individuals kind of invest with us in our business. Did you do any of that stuff?
We did, and I'm not sure if you would consider it private. So one of the things we did was, and the cheapest way to get it, believe it or not, was to take home equity lines against our own houses.
Yeah, the home equity lines of credit. Just for our audience that doesn't understand that, Daniel, break that down, please.
So essentially, the bank looks at your property that you live in, right? And they say, and they usually lend up to 75% of the value minus whatever your first mortgage is. So let's do this for simplistic terms. Let's say it's $100,000. The property's worth $100,000.
ARV is 100.
You qualify for 100 based on your income and your credit score.
Gotcha.
But you owe 50,000. They're going to lend you up to 75,000, but they're going to back out the 50,000 from your first mortgage, so they're going to give you 25 grand.
Line 25K.
Now, the great part about that is a lot of banks have restrictions. Some of them have them for 2 years or 1 year. There's a few that even have them for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Usually the banks that have a restriction that that if you close the account within 3 years, then you got to pay back all the closing costs that they gave you for free. Mm-hmm. So now in New York State, that adds up to a lot of money in New York City, because you have a transfer tax for the city, you have a transfer tax for the state, you got attorney's fees, you got underwriter fee and appraisal fees, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, right?
Recording,
So
yeah.
$100,000 loan could cost you $7-8 grand that the bank's picking it up for. And the great part is it's sitting there. So if you're not using it, you're not paying interest on it, but it's available to you to use when you find the deal.
Nice. So
that's the great part about it.
You would prefer a home equity line as opposed to a home equity loan. Is that what you're saying?
Well, either or, they're still the same. It's a HELOC loan for short of, that's another terminology.
Well, my clients ask me, there's, the loan, you're getting the whole 25, but as you just said with the line.
If you go for, no, because then it's not a home equity loan. Then that's what they call a refi. So you're refinancing, you're pulling all the money out, but guess what? You're paying interest on that money while you're not using it.
There you go.
The other thing is you got to be extremely disciplined, right? So I've seen a lot of guys do this for the purpose of investing in real estate, and then 2 months later, talking to me about new outdoor furniture or new furniture they bought for the inside of the house, or they spent money going on vacation. And, now they're paying interest on items that's not making the money. Then what was the purpose?
That's a killer. So what would you say? I know for me, I always tell my philosophy is you can't buy anything consumable. What would you tell my audience, Daniel, that what can you not buy with that money? Because it's a trap. It's nothing but a trap when you spend this money.
You can't buy anything if it's not an investment, period.
Must be an investment.
Right. But now, on the other side of that, I think her name is Susie Osman.
Mm-hmm.
The financial
Susie Orman. Susie
Orman. Yes.
My wife loves this lady.
I think she's great if you're a 9 to 5 person.
Yeah, different.
Right? Because I've heard her where she's giving advice like you should never take a home equity loan to invest for investments. Never. And I guess if you don't have the discipline or the financial knowledge, she's 100% right. But if you're taking the time out to educate yourself and you're a disciplined person, like as we are, you shouldn't have a problem.
Well, I know on my first one, Daniel, I took out a $15,000 loan, a line of credit, and I didn't know. I spent it on things, and I look back at it, I'm like, damn, I not only do I owe the first, but now I owe the second.
That's right. That's right. So I tell people, if you're going to take it out to buy consumer items, you should be doing it. If you're taking it out to pay for your kid's college, you're still wrong, because you should have been thinking about that when your kid was, 1 year old, not now.
You talking, Dan?
Look, loans are great, but they could also be a severe detriment. Mm-hmm. They're like drugs, right? If you take the drug as prescribed by your doctor, it's going to work. If you abuse that drug, then you lose everything, right? You lose your health, you lose your mind, you lost everything.
So you were talking about this mixed use stuff. Is this something that, I don't know, is that a newbie type of thing? Is that something that a more experienced investor would get involved with, Daniel?
I gotta tell you something, Chris. It's funny you asked me that question. I just had that question asked me. Somebody asked me that this morning. Mm-hmm. Crazy enough, it was the marshal that came to do the eviction that I had to do this morning. Yeah.
We should make him friends.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting guy actually. But in either event, it all depends on the individual. But I got to tell you, Chris, today it's so much easier to get in, and you know this. I mean, you're teaching this on a daily basis. I mean, was this none of this was available to us when we started?
Yeah,
it was all hit and miss. I can't tell you how many mistakes I made. I can't tell you how much money I lost on my mistakes. But you could avoid those mistakes today by listening to what you and I are doing right now.
Yeah. The internet, there was no internet or chat groups and emailing people.
No. I mean, there's just so much information available to you right now that if you make a mistake, look, we're all going to make mistakes. But it'll lessen the probability of you making that mistake. with the information that's available for free.
So you're saying you're hands-on with your rental properties. Are you serving 5-day notices and going out and making sure evictions are getting, I'm
Notices
kind of,
on the notices, we pay processor service to do that because you pay them 14, 15 bucks, it's done. There's no reason for us to go do that, right?
gotcha. You still have
Um,
to keep track of it though, whose rent's coming in and you,
well, yeah, but like remember, we have a whole wheel in place already, so it's not that difficult to do.
gotcha.
What's the difficult part is when you first start is figuring out what works for you, like how to organize it in a way that works for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? To keep track of it. Although since I've come back, and my wife, she was working in a title company, and now she's at home, and the kids are older. She's been helping me a lot, and she's actually automated my stuff even further, and helped me out with trying to make things a lot easier and streamlining things, so I could actually see the numbers quicker
Gotcha.
without doing it through files and things of that sort. So that helps a lot. But the primary thing is being organized.
So your typical deal down regarding your land deals, are you finding those, is that like realtor stuff or do you guys do mailers? You do marketing for that type of stuff? Tell me a little about that land stuff.
Believe it or not, we got stuck at the end of the recession with over 180, 190 lots.
Oh, wow.
It was insanity.
So this is the Cape Coral thing? Because I remember that the industry, let me tell you this, Daniel. They used to come to my town, Cape Coral, like snake oil salesman, or what, like, if you will.
That's
You know,
right.
come and say, listen, we'll use your credit. All you have to do is sign here. We'll use your credit to buy the land, build a house, and you'll make 10 grand.
Right. And they were doing it. People were actually doing it. We didn't do it back then. We didn't do it back then because it didn't make sense to us. Just like condos. You could go to Miami, buy a condo pre-construction, at the closing table, supposedly make 10, 20,000 sometimes.
Yeah, selling it off, yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of investors that did it. A lot of investors that got cool with it when the music stopped.
Mm-hmm.
We never did it because it's got to make sense to us.
Gotcha.
So the reason we sold the lots in Cape Coral was because it didn't make sense to us. The fundamentals weren't there to substantiate the number.
The prices are going up?
Well, the price that they were going up too. So we said, let's get out of here.
So you got out?
We got out, and it's funny because then the lots went up another 10 or 15,000, and I was upset. I was really upset. And my accountant at the time, my accountant for 37 years, Mr. Hyde, looked at me and he says, "Don't ever be upset with a profit that big."
Yeah.
So that's when we went up north and we started buying at numbers that made sense.
Mm-hmm. Stable market.
Exactly. Numbers that made sense that we could sell to individuals and know that we were selling a property at a certain number that made sense. So I'm not sure if you remember around the same time, Eric Estrada had these commercials on TV.
Mm-mm.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember that one.
I forget the name of the company. They were, they fly you in, they drive you around in a nice fancy bus. And at the time, they were doing a lot in a place called Northport, which is Sarasota County.
Okay.
Really beautiful area. It sits between the Gulf and the Bay. Actually, no, that's Port Charlotte, but they had a lot of land there too. And what we started doing was, while we reinventing the wheel, we knew a lot about the area. We knew Walmarts were coming in. They were. We did a lot of studying of the Department of Transportation website, so we knew what was getting funded in that area for widening of roads. It all made sense. So we started going in there buying, and we got actually, there was this one woman, she would do her and her husband, they were probably picking up about, I'd say 800 to 900 lots a month just for us.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Were you wholesaling them, Daniel? What are you doing with all this land?
Some we would wholesale, some we retailed. It all depended who, because we had a lot of people calling us at the time. We made a name for ourselves. There was this website called Ocala for Sale that my brother David came up with the idea to put an ad in there for lots that weren't in Ocala. And the phone never stopped ringing. It was a newspaper that then they would put it on their website. the ad.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably costing us about $150 a week. And then this was the kicker. We tried the penny savers. I can't tell you how many calls we got from the penny savers.
Wow.
Both selling and buying.
Mm-hmm.
So that was costing us about another $1,500 a month, but the profit margin on the advertisement was through the roof. And again, remember the internet, that it wasn't to the max to what it is today. So,
Yeah.
you know, would I use any one of those now? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But what we started doing with Eric Estrada's company was we would follow where they were going, and we would start buying where they were buying. And then the lots, they would have lots next to ours for 30 grand, and we were selling ours for 15 and still making a decent profit.
Wow.
But they had to sell it for 30 because they were paying for these people to fly in. They were paying for their hotel stay. They were paying to chauffeur them around. So, you know, they were giving them comfort, and you pay for comfort. You want comfort, you pay for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Is essentially what it came down to.
Nice.
And we put up our signs so people were driving in their vans and they'd end up calling us, you know. And
That's pretty cool. That's cool. Free advertising.
You got it, man.
Out of state advertising for free.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, we've been chatting for about 50 minutes, Brother Daniel. We can get to some Q&A if you don't mind.
Yeah, but I can't see the questions here, so you'll have to read them to me if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Round Up family, if you're just joining us, I'm hanging out with my friend, Daniel Borrero. He is based in Brooklyn, New York, and he's investing in 3 different states, and he's covered so much stuff here today. I'm so thankful to have him with us today. I know he's busy. Daniel, real quick, just tell him about Round Up family, just before we get to Q&A, your day to day, just today, just break, you woke up, you had this, just tell us a little about today.
Today's I tell people, and they tell me, what do you do for a living? I said, depends what time of the day you call me.
Everything, right? Everything.
So today I actually showed up to a job site. I had 2 apartments empty out in one building. So I set up 2 of my crews. But prior to showing up there, I had to make sure I had all the material. So I literally bought everything over the weekend. My son went with me, filled up the work van. So when we got there, they were unloading. I got them up and going. Headed over to another property, met the marshal there for the eviction. Head back to the 2 properties that I was set up this morning, made sure everything was going well, and then sat literally in 40 minutes of traffic trying to get back to my home office so that I could do what we're doing now. And I probably got about another 3 hours of returning emails, and I got 2 more conference calls today.
Good gracious, Daniel. You're rocking and rolling, brother. So you went back to check on the cement to make sure it's being done properly. You still have to kind of keep your eye on stuff.
Yeah, and you know what? They didn't know I was coming, and that's the best time to go.
Well, I want my audience to know that if people that own hundreds of units have to put their eye on stuff, people think, a lot of times they have this perception that passive income, Daniel, and you own many properties. They think passive income. I'm going to get it. I'm going to the beach. It's over.
No, that's not the case. Look, there's a lot of guys that do, but their profit margins are a lot less. You watch your pennies and the dollars will grow, man.
I like that. Well, I love you. You have some great philosophies. Watch your pennies and the dollars will grow. Well, there's passive income. Gary Vee talks about passive income being a myth. For me, I have some that's close to passive, but you have so much real estate, and you're like hands-on. You're managing this stuff. You're getting it done.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, like I said, once you have the wheel in place, it becomes a lot easier. I mean, I remember years ago, I couldn't sleep at night.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Because your mind's going a million miles an hour. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you're in the shower and you're thinking.
Yeah.
I used to sleep with a pad and pen on my night table because I'd have an idea and then I'd want to forget it, so I'd have to wake up and write it down while I was sleeping.
Well, I still do that, Daniel. Is that not a good I thought that was a good habit. Is that just overdrive?
You know what, man? I've been sleeping a lot better where I haven't done that in such a long time. I no longer had the pad and pen on my night table.
So you don't? Okay. Well, I
don't do it because my mind is more relaxed because I'm more comfortable where I'm at right now, right?
Okay.
So
You have a lot though, Daniel. I don't know. Most of my audience that watches doesn't own as much real estate as you own. So I think that I like that idea though. That's a good idea.
So just hit me with any questions you guys have.
Oh, let's do it. Okay, yeah, let's do it. I have my little notepad by the door. I mean, I have it right on my night table, Daniel. I thought that was shit.
I mean, I keep my phone next to the shower door just because sometimes I come up with my best ideas in the shower.
There you go.
And I have to text, I write it on my notes so I don't forget.
Gotta have that notes.
Yeah.
Every millionaire I know has a notepad in their back pocket. And if they don't, every one of them.
That are your things to do list every night, and then the other thing, the most important thing is I found is that if I get the hardest part of the things to do list done early in the morning and not procrastinate them, then everything else seems to go smoother. But if I procrastinate with that, then the whole day goes a lot worse.
Everything gets harder, right?
Yeah.
David, he's also thanks for what you're doing. You are welcome, David. Thanks for letting me serve. Thank you for David. Williams has a question. Hey, Williams, what is your secret to success on closing your sellers? Have an opportunity in Flatbush. Oh wow, multifamily for the taxes owed. How would you approach that seller, Daniel?
You need to find out what that seller truly needs. What is the value to that seller? What does that seller really need? Everybody has a different need.
Might not be money. With my deals, money is not even like the number one thing. It's more, it's other things around it.
That's right. I did a deal actually with people that I grew. So when I graduated, I went back to my old neighborhood. And at the time, the old neighborhood, when I was there, it was, I guess people outside the neighborhood considered it to be a ghetto. I never thought it was a ghetto. But in any event, when I went back, I met up with a family, the Velez family, that had an issue where the parents had passed. To make a long story short, the kids didn't take care of the property. They were going to lose the property taxes. Mm-hmm. And one of them came to me and said, "What do I do?" And I says, "Look," they asked me if I'd be interested. And I told them the God's honest truth. I says, "I'm the wrong guy to sell to because I can't pay you what an end user would pay you. So what you should do is go up the corner and speak to so-and-so. And if you don't like them, speak to so-and-so. They're both two different realtors. They have buyers at a number that will be a lot better than I could give you."
Nice.
Sure enough, 2 weeks later, they came back to me and says, "Those buyers are headaches, too many headaches. We just want out. We want as soon as possible." And I said, "Well, this is the number I could give you. But remember, I'm telling you, you can get more if you go up the corner and sell it to an end user." Well, to this day, I still have the building.
Wow.
It's and it makes me loads of money. But how did I get that? Because I was honest, I was truthful, and I figured out. And essentially, they were really honest with me, telling me what the value to them was, and I provided that value.
It sounds like you're doing more consulting over than trying to get the deal.
That's a lot. I would say about 50% of the time, yes. And then what happens is they trust you, right? And then even if you don't get the deal, they're going to refer people to you. As a result of you being honest with them, it comes back to you, even if it means like it comes back to you a year from now. I mean, I've got the same office number since 1985, and I can't tell you, at least once or twice a month, I still get calls on that office number.
Good Lord, Daniel.
From people that I did business with 10, 15 years ago, and bringing me a deal at least once or twice a month.
Unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
So I guess my best advice to you is, sit down and find out what is valuable to them. What is it? Money? Is it convenience?
Time.
What time? What is it? What is it that they need? And see if you could provide that necessity.
Nice. Williams wants to know, during your investing career, have you ever been fortunate enough to have purchased one of the houses that were being sold by the city for $1? I'm not familiar.
I was too young. And let me tell you something. Every day I bring that up to my father when I have a chance.
Why is that?
I was a freshman in college when the city came out with that program. I told my dad, I said, all we have to put in it is $10,000 over 3 years. It's easy to do. I'll do it in the summer. And he said, I want nothing to do with real estate. My father had 2 properties and he had nothing but major headaches. But that's because he had my father. My parents had 8 kids. My father was working a store by himself, essentially. But he had a couple of workers. And then when I left to college, he was all on his own, right? Except with the help of my younger brothers that were in school. So he really, in his defense, he just had too much on his plate to be able to work it the right way.
Yeah.
So when I came to him with the idea, like, we could do this, and you're in the neighborhood, and we're in that zip code, and we could do this, and that. And he says, I don't want to know nothing about real estate.
Wow.
So it was funny because the property next to his bodega came up for sale. And I said, Dad, this is $30,000. He's going to hold the mortgage. All we got to do is give him $10,000.
Oh, my goodness.
And he said, I want nothing to do with real estate. I want nothing. So I said, okay. So, fast forward 5 years later, after I got my business on the ground, I kept saving. And I went and bought the first property I bought, believe it or not, was a bank-owned property from the bank that robbed me at 18.9%, Greenpoint Savings Bank. And I said to him, I'm buying this building. I'm coming to you out of respect to see if you want to come in, but I don't need your money. So he turns around, he says, okay, I'll do it under one condition. You bring your brother in. My brother had just turned 18. You met my partner, David. And second condition, I don't want to know nothing about tenants. I said, great. I don't want you to deal with tenants. And I had a set of rules because I read a lot of books back then. There was, like no internet. Everything had to be books. And I went according to those rules that I learned by reading. And
so you missed that.
To this day, we paid $73,000 for the building. I'd never forget this. We put $30,000 into the building. The $30,000, because it had to be a cash deal. But simultaneously, we were buying another building, a 2-family with 2 storefronts that took the rest of our cash, but we didn't have the $30,000 to fix the first building. So I took loans. I would then put everything on a credit card, and then when the bill was due, transfer it to another credit card that was giving me 6 months.
Oh, my Lord.
And then when the bill was due to that, I would transfer it to another credit card that was giving me 6 months. So we would get like 2 or 3 years of interest free until I could finish paying this whole thing off. It was a lot of juggling. But the building today is worth probably about $2.5 million.
Good gracious. Daniel Borrero financing plan.
Financing plan, yeah.
Move credit card.
Exactly.
Hey, Paris, what's going on? A lot of people are hearing. I have remembered that Eric Estrada thing you were talking about.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was insane.
John wants to know, how do you he just has a question, a blanket question. How do you typically find your deals, Daniel?
Believe it or not, a lot of them come to us now. I get deals placed up my table, on my desk every day, 7 days a week. The next question I'll answer, because I know that's going to come. How do I determine which deal I take? And I take a total different approach to every deal. I look at every deal why I shouldn't take it. I look at every single reason why I shouldn't take the deal.
Why you should not take the deal.
Precisely.
I love it.
And then if it still makes sense, and then I'll look further into the deal. But while I'm looking further into the deal, I'm still looking for every reason why I shouldn't take it.
Why you should not do the deal. Round up family. I want you to hear that. I'm walking, same thing. You're walking into this deal. Why do I not want this?
That's right.
I love that attitude, because it's no emotion. When I see your face, it's like, I don't care whether I buy it or not.
Precisely. It's like when I go buy a car, man. I throw out a number, and I know it's a ridiculous number, but they look at me like I'm nuts. But even my son, my younger son was, Dad, I'll never go with you to buy another car.
You didn't like that, huh?
No, because sometimes it's embarrassing. I said, it is what it is,
All right. Jerome C. Hey, Jerome wants to know, how do you find your vacant lots before any corporations do?
Jerome, there's a lot of work that goes into that. First and foremost, you have to first decide what area you want to concentrate in. You have to literally pinpoint it. One, what state, what county, and then what township. And then within the township, what parts within that township. And then you have to, there's a lot that goes into it. So when we look for these, when we're buying these lots, especially when we're buying in value, we look for a lot of
10,
different
20, 30.
Yeah, and even more, because I like to buy in the hundreds.
Okay.
That way I could control the market. I then become the controller of that market.
Gotcha.
One of the things we look for, and I'm giving you some really good advice right now. We learned this on our own.
Hey, tap your
Is
phone. Something
you
happened to my
need
connection.
to-
Is the phone? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you better now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I kind of lost the volume, but I'll try to listen as much as I can. If you just speak up a little more, Chris.
Okay, we're good to go.
You're a little muffled, but I can hear you barely. But essentially, I go to the Department of Transportation, and and what I look for is where they're planning on funding expansion of roads, where they're planning to put in new roads, and where they've actually funded new roads. Problem is where they funded it, you're behind the 8 ball, the curve. Because guys like me already know that was coming, so we've already picked up a lot. But if they're funding expansion of roads, there's a reason for it. They're expecting population growth. There's a reason for it. Now you have to find out what that reason is. Another thing that we do is we follow Walmart. Walmart has in certain areas of the country they have, and again I don't know if it's an official thing. It's just something that I've noticed over the years. They go into areas that they think is going to start populating, and they try to get the land at a cheaper price at a lesser tax rate, and then they're getting the labor force at a much cheaper rate as well. Nice. So and these people got thousands and thousands of dollars invested in this research. Who's my brother and I to reinvent that wheel? Why not just follow it?
Very smart. Very smart.
Simple things like that. Going to city council meetings, community board meetings. Participate, man.
Yeah.
Sit there, listen, talk. This is where things are happening. Mm-hmm. That's how you're going to know what's going on for you to determine where you're going to invest in.
Nice. Can you hear me, Daniel?
Yeah, barely, but I think something may have happened when I got that call. But I'm listening.
Okay. Jalabi wants to know, how do you do your due diligence when your land is out of state? I guess you kind of covered some of that just now. So
a lot of it has to do, believe it or not, like in New York City, it's a different animal. New York City, you should have a civil engineer, you should have an architect. But when you go into the more rural areas, especially down south, believe it or not, you could call up the property appraiser, give them parcel numbers, and 90% of the time they're really helpful. Wow. They'll tell you if the lot's wet, if it's flood zone. The other thing is we've become very diligent at knowing what kind of plants grow in wetlands. So sometimes I may go on a property and the property appraiser may not have it as a wet zone, but it may be just like the corner 10 feet. Wow. Where you had these plants growing. Then that part of the lot is wet, right? Or everything beyond that point is wet. But it's still buildable, right? Which now you sell it where it's giving you that privacy because now no one's going to be behind you. Mm-hmm. But if it's more than 10 feet on the corner, and then depending on, you have to know what your setbacks are. Each town has their own requirements. So, for instance, in Interlaken, you need a minimum of 75 feet wide by 125 feet, 110 feet deep. Mm-hmm. So a lot of lots are only 40 feet wide. So what has happened is that over the years, we have to go and figure out, because there used to be this company called General Development. General Development subdivided these lots 40 by 120, right? Then they went to the Northeast and sold all these lots to people in Boston, Chicago, New York, and then they're paying them the note, and now they want to go build, and they can't build because it's only 40 by 100. They need minimum 75 by 100. Wow. So now we look for all those people and then we buy all those lots up, and then we combine 2 lots, and now that becomes a buildable lot. Now we can sell those 2 lots as a buildable lot.
Gotcha. Smart.
So you have to know what your setbacks are. And listen, nothing here is easy. I shouldn't say it's not easy. It is easy. All you have to do is look for the information. Just take out the time and educate yourself.
Gotcha.
This is not difficult to do. Listen, like I said, I'm not the brightest star on the block, but I'm willing to do the work.
Time consuming. Would you say it's more time consuming, Daniel?
It is. It is. And although it's time consuming, remember, it's consuming that time once, but the knowledge that you get, you're going to use over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowledge that lasts forever.
Nice.
So what does it matter?
Okay. -2. He's minus asked, do you rent a Section 8? We covered that one already.
Can you say I could barely hear you again?
I'm gonna kick you out. I'll be right back. Hold tight. I'm gonna kick you out. I think we had this problem yesterday when your phone rang.
Yep.
Roundup family, if you're just joining us, we're just doing some quick Q&A with Daniel Borrero. I'm gonna see if I can get him back on the line real quick because he couldn't hear what I was saying. Daniel, let's get him back up here. See if we can get back on. Make sure you get your questions real quickly. I'll get your questions answered from a real estate veteran, been in the game for 30 years. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Yep, back.
Yeah, I think we had that problem yesterday, Daniel.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, golly, this thing jumping. Demond Brown wants to know, I was going to ask that too. What is your favorite book? Daniel?
I've got a lot of favorite books. I'll start showing you some, actually.
Let's see.
This here, Millionaire.
Would you consider yourself a prodigious accumulator of wealth, my friend?
Tough question, because everybody has a different definition of what wealth is, right? So,
prodigious. What does he have? Prodigious. Real million mind. All right, he got that. Demond, he got that. The Millionaire Mind. That book is.
That's Oldest Sin. This is another one written by the same author, Millionaire Next Door.
Mm-hmm.
These are books that are, you can buy them on paperback.
I've got it on audio and in my Kindle. But if you round up,
we were talking about the richest man in Babylon. Here goes.
I want my audience to know you have these books. They're reaching family. Can you see he can reach these books right from the computer? I want you to see that.
It's right above my desk. I'm going to tell you one I just finished reading. I'm going to be doing a Facebook review of it. This one here, The Way of the Wolf. With Jordan Belford. It's a book I highly recommend whether you're in sales or not sales. If you're not in sales, you definitely want to read it so you know when you're being sold. And if you're in sales, it definitely it's funny. He has a 15 straight line system. I probably incorporate about 9 of those in. There was 6 of them that I didn't, and I found myself using one of his techniques a couple of days ago.
Nice. Which one?
So it's with Jordan Belford.
That's so crazy you bring that book up. I literally downloaded that book last night to my audio file at 8 o'clock.
Did you really?
Wow, man. Yeah. Read minds think alike. Be a consultant. That's right, Paris. Yes, be a consultant. Jorge Mata wants to know, where would you find the tax delinquency list in the 5 boroughs? Daniel, do you know that?
I got to tell you the truth. I don't buy tax liens. It's something I've thought about doing. But the time that it would take for me to feel comfortable enough, because I study the living hell out of everything. Like I literally beat a dead horse when I'm doing my research.
On your deals?
When I'm looking at going into a different part of the business.
Gotcha.
So that's a different part of the business. I'm not saying it's a bad side. I'm just saying I don't know enough of it to give any real advice on it, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. That's fine. Paris wants to know, do you remember Carlton Sheets, Dave Deodato, and Tom Vu? Paris.
Two different marketing techniques between both of those men.
Paris.
Yes, I do remember them. I never subscribed to any of their infomercial stuff because I just thought it was all, I don't believe in that type of stuff. So that's why.
Gotcha.
No, I can't say anything good or bad about them. I just never.
Paris, this dude's been around.
Yeah.
Menu wants to know, how big is your team, Daniel, and is it a family business?
So yeah, there's a lot of family in it. It's my brothers, my father, and I. So there's 8 siblings, right? The boys work together. It's not a boy and girl thing. It's just that's the way it happened. Maybe because we were always working on my father and his bodega, from a young age. We didn't have that wasn't a choice. That wasn't an option.
Had to be.
So yeah, that of course that's that team. And then I have 2 different crews for New York. I have 2 different crews right now for Florida. At one point we had 6 crews, but with the price points at what properties are at right now, the flipping side is really not there as much as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we concentrate more on the long-term stuff. And I got to tell you, in every state, I didn't touch on this, which I wanted to earlier. So every state has a different philosophy. So in New York, I'll buy multiple family units or mixed-use properties. In Central Florida, I buy any property that makes sense, but I only keep the condos.
Why is that, Daniel?
Or townhouses. Because, how do I say this without sounding like a schmuck? I'm very anal with my properties.
You were talking about in the condition that you like to keep them?
Precisely. So I only buy in certain complexes or in certain communities that I've done all the research on their HOA, the HOA manager, the delinquency rates. I could go on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And I rather pay that HOA fee and not have the headache of roof, siding, windows, landscaping, sidewalks, blah, 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 down the road. Whereas with the inside of the unit, we renovate them before we fix them. If something goes wrong, it's a leaky faucet, something minor.
Yeah.
Nothing of any major consequence, and it's much easier for us to manage. And of course, it's a better quality of life for us.
Nice. I'm making a note here to bring you back on the HOA horror stories. You gonna do that for me?
No problem, man.
I know I got to hear, not today, but I'm just making a note to do that. I mean, I'm sure you got some HOA stories you can share with my audience.
We've gone to some battles, man.
I bet. I can imagine. Oh, Karina wants to know, she's down in Florida, how do you take vacant land and turn it into a parking lot? I thought that was a pretty good strategy too. No building.
Well, it's totally different, right? So it depends on what part of the state you're in. It's a lot easier to do when you're in the southern part of the state than you're in the northern part because of the population level. So, and there's a much more demand in the southern part of the state than there would be in the northern part of the state. So if you go up to the north and there's, vacant land all over, most people aren't even going to know if I live next door and I'm parking my car in your lot because you're not even there. Mm-hmm. So that's an open-end question that I really can't answer without having more detail.
Gotcha. Well, do you see, Daniel, and this is a little bit staying in the vein of this land, do you see people doing gardens and stuff? I mean, do you foresee that in the future, like in the city area, or are they doing that now?
They do that, yeah. I mean, but there's not as much land as there used to be because the city's really boomed, especially during right after Giuliani's administration when he cleaned up the city. Yeah. Then Bloomberg came in and he created a lot of city. He gave away a lot of city lots for gardening, but at the end of the day, they still succumb to the money, right? Where developers are coming and saying we want to buy it, and this is the number we're willing to pay, and the city says, of course, we're going to get rid of it because they could always use the money in the coffers.
Oh wow! Look at this Ninja Kitchen cooking with love out in Denver. That is nice. Detroit. Hey, another. Last questions, Roundup family, the great books. How do you, Shawnee, how do you go about finding a mentor, Daniel? What would you recommend for someone looking?
Take them out to lunch, man.
Yeah.
But, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer that question.
That's cool, my friend. That's cool. Janine Alexis wants to know, oh, wow, they're in NYC. Is it easier to invest in the city or out of state?
Depends on your finances. So we haven't really been buying in New York City because the numbers just don't make sense
To buy?
to buy right now, in my opinion.
Is there a time to buy? I mean, you've been seeing enough market. You've seen a lot of this. My mentor used to say, Chris, there's a time to buy and a time to sell. Is that true for you?
Very much so. Very much so. We've been spoiled. We've always been catching the wave down or right at the bottom on the way back up. But we were able to do that because we spent a lot of time reading. If you know the history of the country economically wise, you could have a really good way of gauging where the market is going. I'll give you one of the things we look at is the bond market. The bond market is a true indicator of where the economy is going. And then that lets you decide where you want to be in that cycle.
Gotcha.
But, investing in New York City is very difficult, extremely difficult, because the cap rates are very low.
I can imagine starting off. I mean, I wouldn't even know. The numbers are just got to be crazy. Paris wants to know, how do you see the value in Manhattan, where the value is more to build up? Are you doing any type of renovations like that, building on top of stuff, Daniel?
We did once. I'll never do it again in the city.
Why is that?
Not cut out for it, for lack of a better expression.
For contractor terms or
no, it's just
government?
it's the imposition that the government puts on you.
Yeah.
To build is just outrageous and
prohibitive. You can't even.
Yeah, and that's not to say it can't be done. It is done, and a lot of people are very successful at it. But I'm a firm believer in do what you do best, and you'll be happy at it, and you'll make more money than trying to do something that you don't like doing. Because it's hard to learn something that you don't like learning.
Gotcha.
It was funny. I hated science, but I loved history. But now as an adult, I realize why. Because science never did anything for me. That didn't excite me. History excited me. Gotcha. So that's why I was good at it. So no, I do a lot of. I much rather in the city prefer to buy an existing property and gut it out. A lot of times we've sold the air rights to the property to the developer next door, and sometimes we've even gotten as much for the air rights that we paid for the whole property.
For my audience that isn't familiar with the air rights, which I don't want to get into water rights too, but what are air rights, Daniel?
So, well, again, it's different in different areas of the country, but in New York City. So let's suppose you have a person who bought the building. I have a four-story building. They want to build. They could go up 8 stories on the lot next door. So I could sell him my air rights, which now means my property is deed restricted. No matter who I sell to, they can knock down the building if they want, but they can't go more than 4 stories, right? Mm-hmm. I sold my right of those additional 4 stories to the guy next door.
Nice.
So he may not have been able to go up the additional stories because of zoning restrictions, but he could go further back on the property, adding that square footage that he would have gotten on the 4 stories going up.
Nice.
If that makes sense.
There's
a lot of different ways around that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done that where we've sold the air rights because I had no intentions of selling the property, and 2,
free money.
It's free money.
Good Lord.
There's no way to make money in this business every which way, man. It's just a matter of you taking the time out to educate yourself so that you know what's available to you. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. Janine Alexis, thank you so much for your love offering. Thank you so much for your love offering. Golly. Last question I see here, Minus wants to know. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, Round Up Family. Are you a Minus wants to know, are you a Mets or Yankees?
I'm a Mets fan forced to be Mets fan. My wife has been a Mets fan since she was a kid. But personally, you guys may laugh at me. Never went to a professional game until my wife took me.
What?
Yeah, never had any interest. I didn't. If it didn't make me money, I didn't care. I didn't care to take the time out to see it.
True entrepreneur.
Yeah, but again, if any of your subscribers they want to ask me any questions, they could reach me on Facebook at usalandventures.com or Daniel Borrero.
Daniel, I should have put your full name in there. Sorry about that. I'll put it in the video description. Roundup family, y'all know I'm gonna do that.
You can follow me on Instagram at USA_land_ventures. VENTURES.
Yes. If anybody final thoughts for new real estate entrepreneurs, Daniel, if you could just bless them with what will be your number one thing you would suggest today, 2019?
Educate yourself. It's all free online. Right now, what we're doing is anybody watching this, it's awesome. They're getting tons and tons of free information that is invaluable. You're going to avoid so many mistakes that people like myself made that we didn't have access to this free information. Educate yourself. Read. Constantly read. I'm not just talking about books. Read about the economy. Read about different parts of the country. Take advantage. Figure out how you could. There was an article. I don't remember where it was in, about 7 years ago, and they were talking about how where they felt the housing market was going to be in relation to owners versus renters. Mm-hmm. This was about 8 years ago. And I remember my brother and I had been discussing this, and we felt that this was happening because we could kind of see it happening by the type of sales we were doing or who we were selling to. And this article just confirmed it. Mm-hmm. For the first time since World War II, we were going to have more renters than homeowners.
Wow.
And my brother and I came to the agreement that we were going to position ourselves to take advantage of that rental market. And that's exactly what we did. But we couldn't have done that if you weren't reading. You weren't, picking up the Journal, the New York Times. I mean, because the business section, whether you like these papers or not, whether you believe they're fake news or quote unquote or not, the business section is the business section. There's articles, read the articles about the bond market, read the articles about, I have tons of articles on my Facebook page that I'm constantly reposting or sharing, actually, because there are awesome articles about where the economy is going, where the housing market's going, where the unemployment rate is going, where unemployment rate is going down in certain parts of the country. That tells me I need to go invest there. Where there's certain governments like Kasich in Ohio, the programs he's putting in right now for the state of Ohio is awesome. Is in reference to possible of increase of value because of the jobs that he's creating with his new programs, where he's educating people to go do work in as machinists and things of that sort, right? Mm-hmm. So these are the things you need to read so that you can kind of gauge where the population's going and if there's going to be jobs there for the population when they get there, and that tells you where to invest.
I'm hearing a lot of millennials, Daniel, and we're cut from a different cloth, merely because of different generation. But a lot of millennials, I'm hearing this whole thing where they're not encouraging home ownership, encouraging rent, and then take your money and invest it on the side. Where are you at with that? Just strictly on the business standpoint, not personal.
So having two millennials in my family,
good.
I don't have a problem with it as long as they're investing. So no, I don't have a problem with it. The way I look at it is if for people on our side of the business, it just affords us more opportunity to make money. Mm-hmm. You can't change what each generation is going to do. What you can do is figure out how do you position your company within the real estate business to take advantage of that personality type.
Whether it's Airbnb, rental
doesn't
properties.
matter what it is, right? It's like It's like, to me, it doesn't matter who the president is, right? I only want to know what the policies are coming out so I can position myself accordingly to take advantage of those policies. You know, as business people, those things should not concern us. What should concern us is, how do we position ourselves? It doesn't matter whether you're in real estate. It doesn't matter what your product line is. How do you position yourself to take advantage of that mentality or that personality?
Gotcha.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
Well, I'm just so, I guess you cut my arm and blood and dirt comes out. You know, I'm a real estate guy, if you will. But I'm just going up against, even with Bet David, he's like, real estate's not for me, you know, and the man does extremely well.
extremely well, right?
So it's trying
But
to go.
Look, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're happy doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not to say what we're doing is wrong, or what he's doing is wrong. It's just we do what we do best, what we love to do.
Well, I'm just saying on the spectrum of hard to easy, you know, restaurant being in the category of perhaps a hard.
Very
Or,
hard.
that in that framework, Daniel. That's all, my friend. It's like with real estate over time. I know by default, if I pay my loan off in 30 years, you know that it creates wealth. That's all.
Listen, I got into real estate, like I said earlier, because I was trying to figure out, where can I become wealthy, although I don't have the assets that a lot of my competitors had growing up, right? The advantages, I should say, right? And I saw real estate as affording me that opportunity to play on the same field as they do, right?
Nice.
So I didn't have the money to go to the better colleges. Not to say I would have even got in, because I couldn't have. I just wasn't prepared. But that doesn't mean I can't compete at the same level once I learn how to.
Gotcha.
So it's all about, real estate afforded me the opportunity to work hard and achieve my goals.
Gotcha. It worked.
Right.
Okay, Roundup family. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, my friend.
Very welcome. It was a pleasure, enjoyable doing this, actually. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, so we'll come back again. We'll get you back on here one more time to go. I want to hear some more HOA stuff in the near future.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to know, let me know. And again, for your audience, if they ever want to ask me, if they want to go deeper into any of these questions, they could private message me on Facebook, Daniel Borrero Jr.
Yep.
Or USA Land Ventures. That's a company. I have one on my personal side as well as on my company side, USA Land Ventures. And then on Instagram is USA_land_ventures.
Yeah, I'm gonna type all that in on the video description so you guys can just go down and get in touch with Daniel at any time.
Sounds great.
Okay, Roundup family, I love you. I'm gonna be doing my evening entrepreneurs things this week. I'm not sure what night, but look out for me around 9 o'clock. I will be doing tomorrow at 9 p.m. wholesaling a subject too. Roundup family, I love you. Subscribe, hit the like button, comment what content you'd like to share, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Take care, Chris.
Yes, sir.